From claims of healings and visions to the world's most inexplicable events, whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the truth is always worth the hunt.
EWTN Radio presents The Miracle Hunter with Michael O'Neill.
Welcome to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. Hey everyone, we're in the month of November, as we all know, and we just passed Halloween. Hope everybody had a good time celebrating that strange holiday, and a very Catholic holiday when we talk about it being the Eve of All Souls. That's what All Hallows means anyway. And so, of course, last week we talked with Adam Bly, who's the Paratus of Religious Demonology for the Diocese of Pittsburgh. And we're staying on the theme again. We're talking to an American exorcist. We'll be talking with Monsignor Steven J. Rosetti. And his book, Diary of an American Exorcist, is a good one. And so we'll be staying on that theme of exorcism this week. And of course, it is the month of November, and November is the month of the Holy Souls. It's a month dedicated entirely to all those people who will make it to heaven eventually. And we'll be talking today with Susan Tassone, the absolute expert on the Purgatory, and people know her as the Purgatory Lady. So we'll be talking with one of our favorite guests later in the program today. And for people who are interested in tuning in to EWTN for some good content, they can check out the new season of Explore with the Miracle Hunter. I'm so excited. People who have tuned in to Explore, those previous episodes have aired on repeat for a few months now, but we have brand new episodes starting for 7 weeks. And the episodes coming up on this next weekend will be Explore with the Miracle Hunter Banu. And so I'll be investigating a stunning Marian apparition in Belgium to 11-year-old Mariette Becco, who witnessed 8 visions of the Virgin of the Poor, who promised to intercede for the poor, sick, and suffering. And for people who haven't tuned in to Explore with the Miracle Hunter, it's my travel show, travel all around the world, and I bring my film crew with me. And when we go, we get to capture these most famous places of Catholic miracles in the entire world. And many people don't know that in Belgium in 1932 and 1933, 2 of the most famous Marian apparitions recognized by the Catholic Church occurred in Belgium. So we have Pope John Paul II traveling to Banu and also to Bahrain, and both of those episodes will be this season on Explore with the Miracle Hunter. So connect to the Facebook page of the Miracle Hunter or Instagram. I'll be posting there as well. But new episodes each and every Saturday at 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern. You can check out these brand new episodes, and I'm so excited for you to take a look at what I've been working on. And of course, you can check out They Might Be Saints on November 11th at 4 p.m. One of my favorite future saints is Venerable Bishop Frederick Berga, and you may have heard this, but they do have a miracle that they're investigating currently in Rome, which could propel him to being declared a blessed, and he would join the ranks of just a handful of other blesseds, Blessed Solanus Casey, Miriam Demjanovic, Stanley Rother, and James Miller, and Francis Xavier Silos. I think those are all the blesseds in the United States. And so perhaps we'll see a new blessed joining us in not too long, Bishop Frederick Berga. But tune in for that episode of this amazing snowshoe priest. And for people who are looking for a book to read, especially around Christmas, we've got Science and the Miraculous, which is available in my new book that looks at the Church's rigorous investigation into miraculous occurrences, healing miracles, tears on statues, Eucharistic hosts, visionaries who claim to see Mary, saints whose bodies are incorrupt, and people who have the stigmata. So an amazing exploration into these cases where the Church uses science where possible. Science and the Miraculous is available on EWTNRC.com. Later in the show, we'll be looking at November 5th, 365 Days with Mary. For today's date, we've got Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal in Monte Sao in Brazil from the year 1939. The might-be saint of the day, Blessed Bernhard Lichtenberg, a martyr from Germany who lived from 1875 to 1943. And the question of the week is a tricky one, believe it or not. Who was the very first canonized saint? Seems like it would be easy, but it is challenging. I'll do my best to answer that question later in the program. Let's take a look at the miracle news. We do this every week where we try to report on the miraculous events happening all around the world. And things that relate to miracles. But on this week, you can check out the Facebook page of the Miracle Hunter and see what some people are calling a quote-unquote miracle caught on video. There was a priest who escaped unharmed when an SUV hurtled his car. And there was an 87-year-old Father John Bock was a physics teacher earlier in his life, but he can't wrap his brain around the physics of how another car hurtled his own on the way to celebrate Sunday Mass in October. And this priest, he said it's a miracle when he talked to Catholic News Agency about this near-death experience. And he's a semi-retired priest. He helps serve Mass at St. Andrew Catholic Church in Ohio. And he was on his way to celebrate Mass when it was about 8:40 a.m. when he was nearing the church, and that's when something went wrong with another driver. There was a young man driving another vehicle on a road near Bach who had a seizure while behind the wheel and passed out, and the young man's car went off the road and was on course to ram its front into Bach's driver's side door, and all that was standing between the two cars were a road sign and other vertical objects sticking out of the ground, if you look at the video. And the video shows the SUV ramming into the obstacles head-on and then completely flipping over the priest's car. It's amazing. You might call this a miracle. And the Bach said that the police officer who knows him approached him while he was at a restaurant after Mass and notified him that he was almost hit by the young man's car. And the police officer showed Bach a video of the event that was caught on camera by a funeral home across the street, and it's absolutely amazing. So connect to the Miracle Hunter news page, and you can see this incredible video. People are comparing it to something out of a Fast and Furious film, and it's absolutely amazing that happened that way. So check that out on miraclehunter.com or the Facebook feed of the Miracle Hunter. Let's take a look at Catholic Pub Trivia. We do this every week where we ask a trivia question and give out a prize to an emailer that gets the right answer. My friends who know me know that I love trivia, and you'll find me at a trivia night or at a bar sometime playing pub trivia. But this is Catholic Pub Trivia for you. And so last week we asked the good question. We got lots of responses. What country was Mother Teresa born in? We had that interview with David Nalieri last week from the Knights of Columbus. If you haven't checked out that film, No Greater Love, see if you can find a copy of it somewhere. Absolutely amazing film about the life of Mother Teresa. And so when we talk about the country that Mother Teresa was born in, the answer is Skopje in North Macedonia. That's the location where, the modern-day location, and present-day location anyway, where Mother Teresa was born. Everybody knows her for her serving the poor in India, but she was actually born in North Macedonia. Absolutely amazing. And for the question for this week, we're talking today with Purgatory Lady, expert on Purgatory, Susan Tassone. And so the question is about Purgatory, and this month is the Holy Souls of Purgatory. And so name any of the 5 Bible verses that are most commonly interpreted as referencing Purgatory. That question, again, we're talking about Purgatory today on today's show and for the entire month of November. So name any of the 5 Bible verses that are most commonly interpreted as referencing Purgatory. If you think you know that answer and want to win the prize, the image of the faces of Mary, send me an email to miraclehunter@EWTN, or just go to my website, miraclehunter.com, and send me a message that way. And answers and winners will be posted on the show page on miraclehunter.com. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll be talking to the Purgatory Lady herself, Susan Tassone, about this amazing month of November and the Holy Souls. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. We talk about feast days of saints all the time, but there's only one saint, or a group of saints perhaps, you might say, that has a whole month dedicated to them, and we're smack in the middle of it. We are in the month of November, the month of the Holy Souls of Purgatory. And when we talk about this topic, there's only one name that comes to mind that any Catholic has. It's a best-selling author, Susan Tassone, known affectionately as the Purgatory Lady. And she's the author of numerous Catholic books, and one of them is called Praying with Saints, for the holy souls. And so we're joined today to talk to Susan, a good friend of the show, to talk about what do Catholics really believe about purgatory. Welcome back to the show, Susan.
Oh, Miracle Hunter, we're branded. The Miracle Hunter and the Purgatory Lady. I hope they know who we are when we hit the high heavens up there. And happy All Souls. What? Pardon me? What?
I always like on my phone when I see Purgatory coming up on the speed dial. So it's good to have you back on the show. And I think
it's great. It's great.
Purgatory is a big topic that we can talk about all kinds of topics that Catholics are interested in, whether it's miracles or Mary or saints, but everybody dies and everybody has friends and family who has died, and they have this question of what happens next. And so this is one of the top issues that you might say Catholics wonder about, because we're all headed in that direction to life after death and what happens next. And so the big question I think that a lot of people want to know about is, who are the holy souls of purgatory anyway, and how would you define them, Susan?
I love that question, because that's when I first started with this, working with the holy souls. That was my question. Well, who are they? Are they that word holy soul sounds like it's a third party, like it's somebody outside ourselves, somebody that's beyond, in another category, another circle, but they're not. They're part of our circle. They're part of our lives. They're our fathers, our mothers, our aunts, our uncles, our children, our bishops, our priests, our doctors, our lawyers, our friends, our neighbors, all the people that are entwined in the fabric of your lives. That's who they are.
And how does the concept work of us needing to pray for them? I know that many Catholics understand that, but people who are new to the faith or learning about the faith, what do we have to do anyway with praying for the holy souls of purgatory?
Yes, Mike, it's part of our doctrine. It's the doctrine of our faith. It's in the councils of Trent and Florence. Tell us about how we're called to pray. It's our duty. It's our privilege, and we have the power from God. He's given, for whatever reasons, Michael, He's given us the power to relieve and release them. He basically puts it in our hands, and he says, I want you, the church militant, which is us, to relieve and release them. And he kind of ties his hands. So really, they're in our hands. We have the ability to hold them in purgatory, delay them because of lack of our prayers, or to speed them home, because we're being told to. It's our duty to do that. And of course, I don't think it's that hard, because everybody loves their dead. Everybody's connected to their dead. That bond is never broken. So, working with Cardinal George, I worked in the missions office, asking, working to increase mass stipends for masses for the missionary priests. Michael, the response is overwhelming, with people calling in about wanting what can they do for their dead. In fact, there was a Pew study done by our Sunday visitor asking the people what do they want to know more about than any other topic, and they chose purgatory.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And you are the worldwide expert, the Purgatory Lady, talking to us today in the month of November. So it's a great blessing to talk with you again. And of course, you're the author of numerous Catholic books, including Praying with the Saints for the Holy Souls in Purgatory. And one question I think that comes up, and people, they're always praying for their dead. And what happens if somebody who's in purgatory actually makes it to heaven along the way, which we're all praying for? What happens if you're praying for somebody who is in heaven already? Are your prayers wasted, or what happens there?
Most common question and a most common response. The most common response, Michael, is that the prayers will go to someone else. God will take those prayers and distribute them. Well, it's a lot bigger than that. And I learned this from Mother Angelica, and Father Midge confirmed it, and it's in the great writings of the books. It's called accidental glory, and it's coined by Thomas Aquinas, and this is what it means. If a soul is already in heaven and you continue to pray for them, what happens to that soul? That soul gets two things. It gets an increase in its intercessory power, and it gets an increase in its intimacy with God. So the lesson is, Michael, you never stop praying for your deceased loved ones, because you're constantly increasing their power to help you and getting them even closer to God. It's some kind of looking at another aha moment when they're with God. So that's what happens to those extra prayers. So you never stop praying for your dead.
Wonderful. We're talking today with Susan Tassone, the Purgatory Lady, author of numerous Catholic books, including Praying with the Saints for the Holy Souls in Purgatory, which is available with her other books at EWTNRC.com. And so when we talk about the first things on our mind of our departed loved ones is talk about what that means. You may say that we're always thinking about those who have passed before us. Why is it important that they stay in our mind?
Well, as you say, they're always on our mind. Our deceased, anybody that has died, especially our family and our sisters and brothers and those that we lived with and are closest to, they're always in our heart. You know, any little thing can cause a flashback of being with them. You know, because of our, because they're our loved ones. So this is the bottom line. They have the souls, your family members who are in purgatory have a very strong bond with you, and that bond is never broken. And because of their great love for you, your family, your souls in purgatory, they're concerned foremost with your salvation. So the family members in purgatory are concerned with their family members for your salvation. So their attitude in purgatory is one of penance, humility, resignation to God's will. That's what makes them happy. In fact, that's what they told Faustina when Faustina asked them, had an encounter with them in the garden, and she said, "Are you happy?" And they say, "We're happy as long as we're doing the will of God." And that's the attitude of all souls. So we need to submit ourselves to their influence. We need to submit ourselves to the influence of the Holy Souls and to the influence of those souls of our departed loved ones, so we can avoid purgatory, because they're bonded to us and we're always bonded to them. So we need to pray to the Holy Spirit to enlighten us. But what else do they do, these souls? They also admonish us. True story. I won't go into it. Literally a true story. I have a brother that died quite young and unexpectedly, and he literally appeared to my sister. It shook her up so much, and he was admonishing her, in a very loving, charitable way, saying, "Look at me." It was so descriptive, it gave me the chills. Look at me. And he wanted her prayers. I was surprised he didn't come to the Purgatory Lady, but for whatever reasons, he needed her prayers, and obviously she was called to pray for him. So there was an admonishment. They don't want us to go to purgatory. They want us to become holy. They're like our second guardian angels. So I think that answers your question. It's the first thing on our minds, and it's the first. It's on their minds to make sure that we get out. We don't go to that workshop in purgatory. Another example is the nuns of, this is again, from all my research, Michael, the sisters' orders, like Mother Angelica's orders, Mother Teresa's orders, Faustina. Guess what happens to those nuns that die if they're in purgatory? They visit the nuns that they lived with. Just like the family members go to the family. That's who they go to first. What about Padre Pio, Solanus Casey, Blessed Andre, the priests and monks? Especially Padre Pio, we hear a lot that the famous story where the monks came, to visit him for his prayers. In fact, those that were on their way to heaven, coming out of purgatory, stopped and thanked him, "Viva Padre Pio," for helping them get home. So
Amazing.
that's why we're on their minds, and they're on our minds.
Yeah, incredible. And along those same lines, I think that there are all these stories of people from purgatory reaching out to the people on earth and perhaps communicating in some way. And we have all these cases of the apparitions of Mary and the saints, and I study those sorts of things.
You do very well, Miracle Hunter.
And so, what does the Church say, if anything, related to these visions of souls from purgatory? Is that a thing that the Church gets on board with, or is that sort of just in popular tradition?
Well, it's both, because actually I have a book, Praying with the Saints for the Holy Souls in Purgatory. It's all about the saints' revelations on the soul, and they're all approved. They're incredible stories about, John Macias was on his deathbed, and he prayed on his knees every night 3 rosaries for the deceased loved ones. or for the souls in purgatory. And on his deathbed, 1,400,000 souls came. Well, I'm sorry, he released 1,400,000 souls out of purgatory, and those souls rushed down and appeared to him and told him, "We're here to take you to heaven." So they come back and thank you, and they come back and take you with them. So there's Saint Faustina, as I said, the souls spoke to her in the garden. Padre Pio, they visited him. And they do. They do communicate with us. So this is how they, the approved ones are through, the saints. And that book has all of them. And we have our own experiences, like my sister. I'm sure people out there I would love to hear some of these stories about how they came. And this is the important thing. God allows them to come. You can't say, "Come and see me." This is something that has to be granted by God. And one of the perfect places, Michael, which I hope you might do a show on, maybe you have, or I don't think you have, is the Holy Souls Museum in Rome. In fact, Michael Warsaw is doing a beautiful promotion about the souls and shows shots from that museum, and they're relics of things where the souls did visit priests and loved ones and husbands and wives, and they touched things, relics, they call them relics, where the souls touched something. Now, why did they do that? They did it for 3 reasons. There's about 25 relics, and it's in my Day by Day for the Holy Souls. I've got all the pictures and the stories behind it. What was the whole purpose of this? First of all, they touched something, and there was a burn mark. Everything they touched either a missile, or Mother Angelica talked about the famous story where the priest came to ask the nun for help, and she said, "They're not going to believe me," and he slammed his hand on her workstation. It was made out of wood, and the hand seared it. Burning, searing hand in the wood. That's still in that church today. So we've got the burn mark, which points to the suffering, which is some interior burning for love of God. It's not a physical fire. It's a burning love for God. So they came to let them know what? There's an interior burning for love of God, and that purgatory does exist, that they are there. And then in all the stories with each relic points to the third. They're in desperate need of masses.
Amazing. We've been talking today with Susan Tassone, the Purgatory Lady, about this month of the Holy Souls in November. Amazing things. And as we wrap up the interview today, I have to ask a question that so many people wonder about, and it's somewhat of a dark question because people lose a lot of hope about this. Suicide. I think that there are so many stories of people who have taken their lives and stories of loved ones, and people worry about what will happen.
Yes.
Do they go to purgatory? Do they go to hell automatically? Is there any chance of them attaining heaven? What does the church say about suicide?
It's right out of the catechism, Michael, and I can give you the numbers, 2282. If suicide is committed, it's really contrary to the moral law, so it's a sin, okay? Does the soul go to hell? No. I'm going to read what the church says here. Grave psychological disturbances, anguish, or grave fear of hardship, suffering, or torture can diminish the responsibility of the one committing suicide. We should not despair of their eternal salvation of persons who have taken their own lives. By ways known to Him alone, God can provide the opportunity for salutary repentance. The church prays for persons who have taken their own lives. So what do we do? How do we help them? Through prayer. Number 1, masses. Number 2, under masses, Gregorian masses, 30 masses in a row for one deceased soul. Mass is the most powerful way you could help them, and especially Gregorian masses. Where do you obtain Gregorian masses? We talk about this on Father Mitchell's show. The Pious Union of St. Joseph is a wonderful organization that has the Gregorian masses available. You can go to their website, pusj.org, and have masses. So that's how you can move that soul back out of purgatory. They're in purgatory. They're suffering from the effects of committing suicide, but they're saved, not to fear. We think too about what could I have done? What didn't I do? We don't know. I was talking to some psychologists and counselors. They said you can't get into that person's mind. It was obviously total despair. It is so sad, but we can't control what people do. So what do? How do we help? How do we feel consoled, you pray for them through masses, through rosaries, through the Stations of the Cross, the Divine Mercy, Chaplet, and Adoration. Those move that soul along toward God.
Well, you've brought a lot of hope to a lot of people. I know so many people despair when they have loved ones who have gone along this path and they don't have a lot of hope. So thank you, Susan, for your reflections on that and also on the Holy Souls of Purgatory. And the name of your book, you have many books, but one is called Praying with the Saints for the Holy Souls in Purgatory. People can go to the EWTN Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com to find many of the books of Susan Tassone. Well, thank you so much, Susan, for joining us on today's show, and happy month of the Holy Souls to you.
And you can catch me tonight on EWTN News Nightly. We'll be talking about Purgatory.
God bless. And that was Susan Tassone, author of the book Praying with the Saints for the Holy Souls of Purgatory and expert on purgatory, known as the Purgatory Lady. We're so grateful for her joining us on today's program. And we need to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be trying to answer that question of the week, which is, who was the very first canonized saint? Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. I love getting your questions. People write in from around the world with questions about miracles happening in today's world and those that have happened centuries ago. And I give talks around the country, perhaps as many as 20 a year, where I talk for about 45 minutes, and then at the end of that session, I'll do a question and answer bit. And so people have been asking lots of questions lately. I feel like the last two talks I gave this past week, there were as many as 20 questions. The kids and the adults had lots of questions, especially when it relates to Eucharistic miracles. And so during this time of Eucharistic revival, if people want to have me to their parish, people can go to miraclehunter.com and click on the Contact tab, send me a message that way, and send me an invitation to speak at your parish. And so the question for this week is from John. He writes, Dear Miracle Hunter, who was the first canonized saint? I know there's some debate about this. Thank you, John. So it's a great question from John, and I think we all have this sort of conception that the sainthood process has been exactly the same for so many centuries or millennia, you might say, but it's really changed over the years. And so we talk about the first 1,500 years or so of the church, and a saint was perhaps somebody who died for the faith, a martyr, and perhaps who attracted devotion after his death. Maybe later they went on to recognize people who lived lives of heroic virtue and didn't just die for the faith. And the very first official Pope canonized saint was Ulrich of Augsburg in the year 993. Before that, the Pope wasn't involved in canonizations. And of course, today we see the Pope presiding over canonizations in Rome, but it wasn't until 993 that we saw the first instance where a Pope actually canonized a saint. It was always done by local bishops. And then in the 16th century, then we saw Pope Urban VIII clarified that only the Holy See had the authority to canonize a saint. And from that time on, the requirements were gradually added to the process, including things like local veneration, finding miracles, and now we have the processes in place from that time. And when we talk about the number of saints in history, there appears to be between 10,000 and 11,000 saints, with 1,600 of them officially canonized by the process starting in 1588. But nobody really can say for sure because nobody kept track of all of them for such a long time. And so thanks for your question, John, about the first canonized saint. And of course, if you want more about the sainthood process, pick up my book, They Might Be Saints, which is available from EWTNRC.com. And also, it connects with my television show, They Might Be Saints, which airs on Fridays at 4 p.m. Central Time. Let's take a look at the 365 Days with Mary project. We do this every week, where we talk about the Marian devotion of the day as it connects to that date. So we all know Fatima, May 13th, or Lourdes, February 11th, or Guadalupe, December 12th. But believe it or not, for each and every day of the calendar year, there's a different Marian devotion that connects exactly to that day, whether that's a feast day or a commemorative event or a miracle. There's a day to celebrate Mary for every day of the year. And so you can, if we look at today's date for November 5th, we've got Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal from Monte Siao in Brazil in the year 1939. And the story goes, in 1937, the bishop asked the pastor of Monte Siao to withdraw the image of Our Lady of Medalha Milagrosa, Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal there in Brazil, from the altar and send it to a countryside chapel. And the absence of the mother was keenly felt by that parish, and between the years 1937 and 39, Monte Siao was plagued by a severe drought, and when it drained in all other cities of the region. So the people associated with the lack of rain, or associated that lack of rain with the absence of their patron saints. So on November 5th, 1939, a procession was undertaken on a sunny day carrying the bier with the image of the patron saint, and on arriving at the entrance of the city, the first drops began to fall, followed by a big rain associated with that Marian title. And it caused the image itself to, and the devotees to be drenched in rain. And from that day, the rain cycle returned back to normal. So that's an amazing weather miracle through Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal in Monte Siao in Brazil in the year 1939. For more information on this fascinating devotion or any of the hundreds of other Marian devotions from around the world, you can connect to the app, free app on the iOS App Store called Marian Calendar 365 Days with Mary, or join the Facebook page of 365 Days with Mary and join any of the 10,000 other followers who get a daily devotion related to Our Lady. Let's take a look at the sainthood news. We do this every week where we talk about the people advancing along the path to sainthood, from servant of God when they're out of the gate, and to venerable when their lives of heroic virtue are established, to blessed when one miracle is established through their singular intercession and a second miracle results in them becoming a saint. And so for the Irish, and you might count me as one of them with my O apostrophe in my name, I was excited to hear this news that just came out this past week about Father Willie Doyle. People are saying, is he a new saint for Ireland? And his cause for canonization of this Jesuit priest is now moving forward. And people say, perhaps Ireland will have a new saint soon. And so the cause of Father Willie Doyle, Jesuit priest and heroic military war chaplain, has just been officially opened. So this past week, the Irish Bishop Tom Danahan of the Diocese of Meath, he issued the requisite edict stating, after having obtained the unanimous consent of the Irish Episcopal Conference and the granting of the nihil obstat of the Sacred Dicastery of the Causes of Saints, hereby decree and inform the diocesan community of Meath that we intend to introduce the cause of beatification and canonization for the servant of God, Father Willie Doyle. And so this is the very first step in the canonization process, and there will be a diocesan investigation into the life and virtues of the now servant of God. And if the process is approved by the diocesan tribunal, it will proceed to the Roman phase, where there will be a panel of expert theologians who will examine Father Willie Doyle's life and virtues after they look at this positio, this collection of documents. And if he's found to have lived a life of heroic virtue, then the Irish Jesuit will be granted the title of venerable, and he will be cleared for possible beatification and canonization once the Vatican approves the necessary number of miracles gained through the singular intercession of Father Willie Doyle. And so this is exciting news for the Irish. For Irish Catholics, we potentially have a new Irish saint in the making, and that's Father Willie Doyle. I posted that to the Facebook page of They Might Be Saints, and so you can check that out and read all about this future Irish saint, and that's Father Willie Doyle. Let's take a look at the Might Be Saint of the Day. We do this every week where we talk about a future saint that's a servant of God, a venerable, blessed, before they have all their miracles, someone who might be a saint someday. And so for today's day, we have Blessed Bernhard Lichtenberg, who lived from 1875 to 1943 in Germany. And his feast day, his commemoration date, is November 5th today. So he was born on December 3rd, 1875 in Oldlau in Germany, and he was a priest of the Diocese of Berlin. and he served in the Berlin Cathedral and was well known in various civic circles. He was an outspoken critic of the Nazis and their anti-Semitism. And Father Berhard, he organized protests around the concentration camps. He led public prayers for the Jews with the terrors of Kristallnacht, and he filed formal complaints against the racist policies of the party. But for these works, he was imprisoned for 2 years, and upon his release, he immediately resumed his ministry, both pastoral and social. And he was arrested again, and he was sentenced to the Dachau concentration camp, but he died en route as a martyr. And that was on November 5th, 1943, in a cattle car at Hof, Germany, on that way to the concentration camp. He was declared venerable on July 2nd, 1994, by Pope John Paul II in Berlin, Germany, and he was beatified on June 22nd, 1996, also by JP2 at the same Olympic Stadium. And that is Blessed Bernhard Lichtenberg from Germany. With one miracle, he will be declared a saint. And for more information on the possible might-be saints of the future, go to theymightbesaints.com or tune in every week to the EWTN show on Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And this week we'll be doing an episode on Bishop Frederick Baraga. And he's known as the snowshoe priest. He traveled thousands of miles on snowshoe in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, bringing the faith and the sacraments to the people there in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, those being the copper miners and the Native Americans who had converted to Catholicism. When I think about, am I doing enough to evangelize, I always have to turn my attention to Bishop Baraga. He is one of the great intercessors for me in my life. And so I encourage people to tune in on Friday, November 11th at 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern, to find out about this incredible might-be saint. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking with Monsignor Steven Rosetti, author of Diary of an American Exorcist. This is the time of year to tune in to what an exorcist might have to say. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. Of course, we just passed Halloween, everyone, and those people who celebrated that American holiday have ghouls and goblins and the like all in their mind from the trick-or-treating that happened. But of course, when we look at Halloween, we always think of the devil because of this time of year is the time when people put their focus on him. And of course, everybody needs to have him on their mind in some way or another on every day of the year. We need to fight temptation from the get-go. And we're so excited today to be talking to somebody who actually has some real-world experience doing modern-day battle against ancient evil. And that book is called Diary of an American Exorcist, Demons, Possession, and the Modern-Day Battle Against Ancient Evil. And the author is Monsignor Steven Rosetti, who is an exorcist in the Archdiocese of Washington and speaks at the Catholic University of America, where he's a professor. We're so excited to talk about this strange, interesting, and for some people, scary topic. So welcome to the program today, Monsignor Steven Rosetti.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be with you.
And of course, I'm glad you made time for us. I know this is probably a very busy time of year for you. Everybody wants to talk to you about this topic, I'm sure. And in some ways, I'm sure you're happy that Halloween is behind us and you can move on to other things. But for those people who don't know and want to learn more about you, what is your experience with exorcism?
Well, I've been an exorcist for about 15 years. There are 3 of us in the Archdiocese. And we do about 20 sessions a week, so we're very busy, and we're slammed with cases. We also do an online deliverance session. We had 12,000 people sign up for the last one, so they're every month. So the need and desire is huge, and so we're doing the best that we can to respond.
Yeah, it's amazing. I spoke recently with Adam Bly from the Diocese of Pittsburgh about his work in demonology, and the numbers are astounding. I think that the story that a lot of people have been told or have come to understand is that exorcisms are extremely rare and demonic possessions are extremely rare. But based on the volume that comes through to you, you'd probably say that's not true.
Well, a case of full possession, there are a substantial number of them, but they're not, the majority. Most people come to us who really do have some demonic affliction, but are not crazy. Well, they have some demonic stuff. We call them oppression or obsessions, a lesser form. And the good news is they can be liberated much more quickly. So most of them have what we might call a partial possession or some affliction, but are not fully possessed.
And if we had to define for the audience what exactly demonic possession is, and I know you detailed this in your book, Diary of an American Exorcist from Sophia Institute, what is exactly demonic possession, perhaps contrasted to the oppression of an obsession?
Well, for example, part of our discernment is, when someone comes to us, are they simply just have a psychological problem, or is there something spiritual? And if there is a spiritual problem, how bad is it? So, for example, when we pray over a fully possessed person, very often their eyes roll back in their head, they basically go out, and this demonic personality comes forward and takes possession, as we say, fully, and now the demon's in charge of the body, and it's ugly, and the look on the person's face, if they could, they'd kill you. I mean, it's just the rage and the violence and the evil. No human being can imitate that. But lesser forms, they'll respond. They'll respond to the prayers, the holy water. There'll be a physical response, but it won't be a full possession case where the demons take over.
Yeah, fascinating. And I think that I think there's a lot of curiosity that people have, and I think it's important that people know the reality of these things, perhaps not keep a focus on these things because they can be dangerous in some ways to be very fascinated with it. But when we talk about some of these extreme cases, perhaps we talk about the reaction of a possessed person to a relic, or perhaps we talk about extreme strength or knowledge that they shouldn't have, speaking in languages, ancient languages perhaps. Yeah. What are the types of things? Are these actual things that happen that you experience with your own two eyes?
Sure. I mean, for example, we have one current case where the person starts to write these messages out in a foreign language. In this case, it was Russian and Ukrainian. And I looked at this message, and she doesn't speak those languages. So I looked at that and I said, this looks like Russian or Ukrainian. So I gave it to a friend who actually speaks Ukrainian. He's from Ukraine. We prayed for his safety. And he said, yeah, it's Ukrainian. He translated, and it was a typical demonic rant. I'm not leaving. There are too many of us. You're powerless, and all sorts of this demonic stuff. So they will speak or listen or write foreign languages, and they will know things, occult knowledge. I've had some really startling cases where possessed people will know things, and there's no way they could have known that unless the demons told them. I'll give you one example. It's very interesting. I was in a possessed person's apartment, and for one reason or other, and she wasn't there. So I exorcised the house, the apartment. I sprinkled with holy water, put some exorcised salt and oil around, and then left. But you couldn't tell when you looked at the place. So she comes back and she looks around and she sends me a text. She says, "Did you do something to my apartment?" I said, "Why do you ask?" She said, "Well, the demons are really angry. They don't like it, and they still don't like it." I said, "Well, I exorcised it. What do you expect?" I said, "I'm an exorcist." So, but she knew that, and there's no way she could have known that unless the demons reacted and told her.
Incredible. We're talking today with Monsignor Steven Rosetti, the author of the book Diocese of an American Exorcist, and he's an exorcist in the Archdiocese of Washington with years of experience. And so, Monsignor, one thing that's kind of curious to me is that it seems that demons can attach themselves to objects and locations, not just people. How does that work exactly?
Well, an interesting case is that I got a call from the Midwest. A man who was not Catholic calls me up and says, and he was frantic, and I just happened to take the call. We usually do not take people direct calls from outside the diocese because we have our hands full with our own. But anyway, so he described what around the house. Turns out the previous owner had been, sadly, a child molester and involved with the occult. So he dies in April. They move in about, July, August, and literally all hell breaks loose. I mean, it was like a bad movie. Things flying around the room, temperature drops, the dogs howling, voices. The family was so terrified, and doors and windows opening and closing, and whispering sounds, every sorts of thing. So the family is so frightened, they're all sleeping in the master bedroom together, and they were not believers until then. So I called the local priest. I said, Father, can you go? He said, well, I'm going on vacation tomorrow. I said, well, this is an emergency. Can you go tonight? God bless the guy. He went. So he exorcised the house and goes on his vacation. And I asked the family, how's it going? And they said, well, it's better, but, it's still a little bit. So he comes back after 2 weeks. He goes in again and exorcises the house, and it's over. So now they're in the front pews of their own church. And but it was the house was infested. Why was it infested? Because evil things were done there, and Satan claims ownership.
Amazing. We're talking today with Monsignor Steven Rosetti about his book, Diary of an American Exorcist, and his experience as an exorcist in the Archdiocese of Washington. And for people some people get very interested and fascinated in this sort of information, and I think your book, Diary of an American Exorcist, sort of lays out some of these fantastic cases that really will open up some eyes. I see some value, perhaps, in this focus on what is dark can, in a strange way, turn people towards the light. Talk about the value of people understanding these things, avoiding them, but understanding the reality of them.
Well, one thing I tell people is that one of the graces of this ministry for 15 years is that I experience daily the truths of the faith. I would say to everyone who's listening, everything the Catholic Church teaches you is true. And I've experienced it. Saints, relics, the communion of saints, sacraments, sacramentals, just you name it. What the Church teaches is true. And you experience that. But also, I'm alarmed today at the people who, because they're not trained in the faith, believe all sorts of things and get themselves into danger. That's why we've gone to social media and start to be there, because there's young people practicing witchcraft, doing magic, and I'm terrified and fighting for them. They don't realize what they're getting into. And
are all these things doorways or gateways, potentially? These Ouija board or witchcraft or tarot cards or all crystals, are all those things dangerous in their own way? Or are those just...
Absolutely. My gosh. You remember the famous movie, the 70s, The Exorcist?
Oh, yes.
It scared the people to, but it's a true story. Actually, you can buy the notes from the Jesuit who did it, the exorcism, and it was successful. Thank God. It was a young man who was possessed, and now he's just died recently. It was fine. He lived a married life and went on, but he got possessed as a 13-year-old by using a Ouija board for months. People don't realize, hey, what's wrong with it? And I said, one mother sort of read me the riot act because I told her it was a lousy idea doing a Ouija board. Come on, people, one young woman basically said on our social media when I said, witchcraft is not good for you, and she said, well, I'm a witch, she said, and I'm able to control the demons. That's completely sorry, but it's stupid and it's dangerous. And I think we need to tell these people because they're not brought up in the faith, and they're believing all sorts of dangerous things.
Amazing. We're talking today with Monsignor Steven Rosetti, author of Diary of an American Exorcist from Sophia Institute Press. And when we look at your life, this has to, obviously you're a person of great courage and faith in order to do this, but what is it like for you as an exorcist to face Lucifer himself, or any of these other minions of demons that you have to deal with, this hierarchy of demons?
Yeah.
What is that experience personally like?
Yeah, I don't feel myself. I'm just a priest, the diocese appointed me and gave me faculties as an exorcist, and so I get calls like almost every other day from a priest saying that he needs help, and I do some consulting. But I say, look, Father, You're a priest. You have the graces of the priesthood, the church, and your faculties as a regular priest in your diocese. You can do a lot of deliverance training and work. You can't do a solemn exorcism unless you have faculties. But I'm nothing special. It's the church. Oftentimes the demons will say to me, you've got no power over me, Rosetti. You're weak. You're a sinner, and you're blah blah. And they start dissing me. And I say, you're right. I mean, for once you told the truth. It's right. I'm a nothing. But I'm not your problem. I said, your problem is Jesus and the church. And in Jesus' name, I cast you out. So it's not me. It's the church's authority given to it by Christ. Whether it's Lucifer himself, once we faced, or a minor demon. It's Christ and his church, which is triumphant. And that's why today people are so frightened of evil or inert or sort of charmed by it. But it's dust compared to Jesus. Jesus is Lord. And then, people say, how do you sleep at night? I sleep pretty well because I say Jesus is Lord and go to bed.
Absolutely. We've been talking today with Monsignor Steven Rosetti about his experience with exorcism. And as we wrap up the interview today, we talk about this book, Diary of an American Exorcist. Again, people are fascinated, sometimes in an unhealthy way, in this subject matter. What is your hope with this book, this diary, that will help open people's eyes and help them to not go down the wrong path?
Yeah, part of it's to teach the faith, to warn people, to encourage people, but most of all, to have people trust in Jesus. It's a wonderful thing, to trust in the Lord. So many people come to me frightened and upset. I say, trust in Jesus, turn to him, surrender your life. God's going to protect you. Trust in Jesus and sleep well, So at the end of the book, rather than frightening them, hopefully it will console them.
Wonderful. And for those people who want to connect with you, perhaps your website or your social media, what's the best place for people? And I've actually spoken to people who have connected with your online work. And talk a little bit about the presence on social media and how people can find that.
Well, first of all, we have a website, www.catholicexorcism.org, or there's an app, Catholic Exorcism. On the TikTok or Instagram, we're reaching out to young people, and then it's Monsignor Rosetti. I've got a page in all these, and we've been surprised. We've only been doing this for a month, and we've had hundreds of thousands of views, and so it's been gratifying and encouraging that so many people are following us.
Wonderful. Well, keep up the great work. Monsignor Steven Rosetti, thank you so much for joining us on today's program and for your great book, Diary of an American Exorcist. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael. God bless.
God bless. And that was Monsignor Steven Rosetti talking to us about his book, Diary of an American Exorcist, and his experience as an exorcist in the Archdiocese of Washington. Amazing work, and let's pray for his success and great work as well. And that's all the time we have for today's show. If you missed any of this episode or want to catch up on past episodes, you can go to EWTN.com/radio and check out the audio archives for Miracle Hunter or download the free EWTN app. I'd like to thank our guest today, Susan Tassone, the Purgatory Lady, and Monsignor Rosetti for talking to us about exorcism. As I mentioned earlier in the show, we have a brand new episode of Explore with the Miracle Hunter going to Banu. I'll be investigating a stunning Marian apparition in Belgium, where 11-year-old Mariette Beko, she witnessed 8 visions of the Virgin of the Poor, who promised to intercede for the poor, sick, and suffering. You can check that one out this Saturday at 5 p.m. Central Time. And check out my new book, Science and the Miraculous, How the Catholic Church Investigates the Supernatural. You can find that at EWTN Religious Catalog, which is EWTNRC.com. And join me on my next trip internationally. I'll be going to Poland and Lithuania on April 21st through May 1st. We'll be filming new episodes of Explore with the Miracle Hunter in Poland and Lithuania. And join me on that pilgrimage. You'll get to see the behind the scenes of that filming and also travel to some of the most incredible Catholic sites in the entire world. So go to pilgrimages.com/miraclehunter to sign up for my brand new pilgrimage. I'd like to thank you for joining me today on Miracle Hunter, where from claims of healings and visions to the world's most inexplicable events, whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the truth is always worth the hunt. Talk to you next week.